What is audit trail? This is a view in Civil, okay? Let's try to understand first what is an audit trail. In general, audit trail simply means the history of something, history of various events related to something. So in context of a day-to-day life, let's say whatever you did yesterday, you took
I think we got it.
I just want to explain
Okay.
for the purpose of recording. So you took it to, let's say you took your car to a bar. You drank this. So this is your audit trail. These are the 2-3 things you did. Then you crashed into somebody, then you ran away. So all these are various audit, right? Yeah. So I mean, it's a dream come true for George Bush or a person who's basically in charge of the police force, that he should be able to see the audit trail of each and every one,
Okay.
right? That's a pretty much a dream come true. So within the context of CBIL, as you just said, we try to determine what happened to a particular record in its history. What is the history of the changes to this record? We typically capture who, when, and what. And even in what, it is at a very little bit more detailed level. Which field, from which value to which value. What was the old value, what was the new value. So it's right here. For most of the entities,
ये कौन सा स्क्रीन अजीब सा लग रहा है, मॉकअप है क्या?
नहीं, स्क्रीनशॉट है. For which value, sorry, for every entity, you can have an audit trail. Okay, in Civil there is a provision. How it is provided is, for every entity there is a separate view. Like for example, in service request there is a view audit trail. Similarly, there would be a audit trail view in account and contact and some other things also. Okay, this audit trail will be having these fields: who did it, employee name, field, which field did he change, what was the old value, what is the new value, and on which date did he do that. Making sense? Right? So this audit trail functionality, this every time anybody does this audit trail, any changes to a record, I'm sorry, anytime anybody changes this record in any way, there will be an audit trail entry here. For every record, there will be separate audit trail entries. I'm sure it makes sense. You cannot have the audit trail for all the records. You have the audit trail for every record, and in a particular view, it will show the related audit trail for that record, whichever is highlighted above. Okay, making sense? After talking about audit trail a little bit, we understood what audit trail is. We need to understand a few other things about audit trail. First thing is, while gathering requirements, you definitely need to find out which fields should be audited and which fields should not be. Why? First of all, it makes the system very slow, because when system is saving something, now it has to save all this data also. It has to, let's say somebody makes 6 changes in the record. Civil has to store 6 such records now. Who did it, when did he do, which field did he change? He has to store 6 more records in another table. Audit trail is a table behind the scenes, obviously, right? So a lot of work is involved for the system. So it will make the system extremely slow. Okay, so we should not recommend putting the audit trail on every entity and every field. Usually it will come out of a very specific requirement. They will be having very specific requirements that we want to audit this field or this entity and this field. Okay. In Civil, you can also control that an audit trail entry is generated only when certain people change. For example, let's say CEO, let's say the requirement could be CEO, VP, manager. If they do any changes, that's fine. But if reps do any changes, we want to know. Reason? For example, in this case, as it looks like that the business processes, they must be having some erroneous inputs. They want to see who is entering the wrong data so that they can train him, or they can catch him and train him or fire him, whatever they like. So they will enable the audit trail, right? They will ask the business analyst to enable the audit trail. So this is one purpose. This is a little bit offline, but there are many other very important purposes. For example, customer history. For example, service request. In case of service request, sales rep would definitely want to know what happened, like when did that's fine. Customer calls and all this is a different thing, but main thing is when somebody changes the value of the service, some fields of the service request, you want to know first who attended the call, then which field did he, who changed the field, then what happened, then who added the comments and which comment did he add, so on and so forth. Then then let's say somebody overrides the comment and enters a new comment. You want to know what was the old comment, right? It is important. If you get such a requirement, you know that we are talking about putting an audit trail on this field. Making sense? So when you're gathering requirement, you should not say, hey, you know what, let's put the audit trail on all all the fields in service request. No, there are specific fields you should try to target, because every time you put an audit trail on certain fields and every time somebody changes those fields, system is gonna make multiple transactions, not just one. System is gonna make multiple transactions. Okay, so it will make the system extremely slow, just to let you know. And audit trail becomes a huge data. Just think, one record, one opportunity record, we call it a transaction data, and we say it's a high volume thing. For every opportunity you have 6 more audit trail records. That means that's gonna be 6 times more data. That means audit trail should not be turned on just like that. Audit trail table becomes too long. Okay, these are the things that are coming to my mind. There is one more thing, I will briefly touch it here, then we'll talk about it in a few minutes in detail. In general, whenever you are modeling a system, you have to think, what will user do, what will administrator do, what will configurator do. Okay, we'll talk about it in detail. But anyway, in administration side, administrator or the developer, anybody who is good in administration, maybe usually an administrator will go and he can say which entity should be audit trail, which field should be audit trail, who all should be audit trail. Once he clicks on, that is, this is turned on, system will start generating audit trail records for those people, for those records, for those entities, for those fields. Okay, so you see your point? And obviously configurator has to provide the audit trail view and things like that to make sure that it is working fine. Okay. So that view is not here. So let's talk about something some related concept here.
TRI.
One of the important things is there is a concept. So this audit trail is a very specific Siebel functionality taken. But then in Oracle database, actually, just as some transaction is done, anything at the database level, Oracle has this facility that it stores somewhere that somebody did something. Okay. Yeah. I and Bam are different on this opinion. He is different, but conceptually, let's understand it completely well. In life sciences, I know it is definitely there. There is a table called as SDB action LS. S_DB_action_LS. LS stands for life sciences.
Okay.
Anytime any transaction is done, it gets automatically logged in SDB action LS also. Obviously, there will be billions of records with that. Like any transaction, anything that is done, if you make 5 changes, all 5 changes are logged.
Right.
In any entity.
So every bit of information ever entered or moved in that is there. Okay.
Exactly. So, but conceptually we understand. And this is not Siebel is doing something. This is Oracle is doing something. Oracle, is a database management system, right? They also have some very fast utilities. So it is not it's not too much pressing. But then audit trail functionality that we are talking about is done really by Siebel. It is stored in a specific table as a data. So processing occurs in the business logic layer. Okay. Whereas what we are talking about is Siebel is not coming into the picture. Siebel stores the data like it will do any day. Oracle does the processing. Basically, DBMS makes sure that they do the processing. Okay, so that is another concept. So in life sciences, yes, and you're gonna be working in life sciences, so you better know about this table. SDB action LS. Okay, so you can go and make. Don't do select. Just do select count star from Siebel.s_db action ls. Okay, you might be able to see a lot of
S_DB_action_ls.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Now I am thinking maybe in Siebel's latest versions they might have included this feature in other verticals also. This is my thought. Or in
this has nothing to do with the Siebel or the business logic layer. This is something that Oracle has, right?
Yes.
So how does it matter if it is life sciences, if it is media, if it is sales?